very happy to be introducing our next speaker, Richard O'Leary. I actually had dinner with Richard last night, and I love it when I get to spend time with someone who is older, energetic, charismatic, and just doing such an incredible amount of good work in the community, not only in his local community, but statewide and even internationally. And Richard has a really, he's on about 500 different committees. He started about 150 different organisations and things, but officially he's a director of O'Leary Partners Proprietary Limited, which is a mid-North Coast public accountancy firm that he's now given to his son to run. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Macleay Regional Co-operative, which started in 1905. He's also the Treasurer of the Mid-North Coast Regional Development Board, the Secretary of the New South Wales Co-operative Federation, and if you look in the bio in here, there's a whole bunch of other committees that he's on and founded and involved in, which is amazing. He's been involved in business and the community all of his working life. His passions have been early education, youth at risk, education, and aged care. His spare time he spends on his family beef and cattle, cattle and timber growing farm on the mid-North Coast. But when he really lit up last night, when he was telling me about being a grandfather and having a granddaughter. And I'd like to introduce a really special man, Richard O'Leary. Thank you.
Thank you, Ant, and thank you everyone for being here today. It's a fantastic opportunity for someone that is pretty busy but can also make the time. In my profession, I've always worked on a 6-minute unit. So you all know about 6-minute units. They've got a charge attached, so we've really got to make sure that we get the maximum out of that 6 minute. In my life, I've always tried to make sure that I fit 2 lives into that 1 life because we're here for a very short period of time. Co-ops. This quote was a quote that I made into the International Year of Co-operatives 2012. It's in as a case study in the Macleay Regional Cooperative, Commerce with a Conscience. The cooperative structure does lead itself to fairness and a fair go. We feel pretty good about that. And of course we do. Cooperative history in Australia started in 1859, actually before Queensland and New South Wales were separated. That's how long ago it was. But when you look at the like Norco, Nambucca Co-op, Macleay Co-op, all of these co-ops actually started in the early part of the 1900s. And of course, they're still going today. So are they social business? No, not really. They're enterprise. They're about membership-driven business with a philosophy, but it does actually have, within the principles of that cooperation, a social business agenda. The federations which represent the cooperatives, they in Western Australia started in 1919, in New South Wales around the 1925s or so. The biggest threat for cooperatives is demutualisation. From 1995 to 2006, we lost 125 cooperatives. Now, demutualisation is actually unlocking value as and of course it's unlocked by members that actually have decided to take their cash and run. Now, some of these cooperatives that have been demutualised, the actual co-op was built by other generations. And of course, the generation that is actually taking their cash and running is in fact capitalising on the work of previous generations as well. The UN year 2012 was a really great year for cooperatives. That put the light on the cooperative movement. It actually gave us an opportunity to showcase cooperatives, but at the same time, look at where we've come from and actually where we want to go. It showcased the movement, the cooperative structures and its benefit. The definition for cooperatives from the International Co-operative Alliance, and the cooperative is a autonomous association of persons united voluntary to meet their common economic, social and cultural needs and aspirations through a jointly owned and democratically controlled enterprise. I actually, in simple words, say it's about self-help. It's about generating wealth within an enterprise that you can actually do the things that you want to do and social agenda as part of that. Industry cooperatives include producers such as dairying, meat, wheat, horticulture products. All of these were created for the benefits of members and assisted producers in a way cutting out the middleman. And that, of course, has come home very much so in the demutualisation process as well. A cooperative is a member-owned enterprise governed by principles, values and ethics. Who are involved? You can see, of course, 1 million members worldwide, or 1 billion members worldwide. 13.5 million members in Australia. 1,600 cooperatives in Australia. Some 700 of those are in New South Wales, and the Federation of Cooperatives actually supports those members. 83 billion combined total assets of financial mutuals. Of course, co-ops are part of that mutual scene. 17 billion turnover in the top 100 cooperatives. My cooperative, Macleay Mutual, or Macleay Regional Cooperative, is actually around number 78. If you look at it from the point of view of revenue, that's where it is. If you look at the point of view of net assets, it's in the top 50. If you look at it in terms of actually what it does from a social issue point of view, how it actually adapts in its community and how relevant it is in the top 10. So it actually has a very strong enterprise base, but at the same time it has a great engagement with its community. You look at the top cooperative in Australia, Co-operative Bulk Handling, is a producer cooperative in Western Australia, substantial sort of revenue base, but also 4,000 members, 4,700 members. You look at more local, the New South Wales Dairy Farmers, which of course is a cooperative, but it's a demutualised cooperative as well. The processing side of dairy farmers is in the hands of a foreign brewer. But in general terms, the membership still drives the milk collection and basically the ownership of that milk supply. Your own Norco here started in 1895 and of course has had varied success over the years, but is going very strong and is a leading cooperative in New South Wales. And of course another local here, New South Wales Sugar Milling Cooperative, and it recently is actually sort of involved with its energy supply and so forth, and basically putting that to market. All types of cooperatives, food, housing and so forth. And I'll just talk about Macleay Mutual, Macleay Regional Cooperative and where it actually sits. It's in the food retailing business. It certainly has a very strong partnership with community radio. We have an arcade full of shops, and one of those shops is in fact Tank FM, which is a local community radio station. We actually collect the rent from them, but we give it back to them by way of actually spending through our advertising, through our community engagement, through our alliances and so forth. We spend our rental back through that community radio station. There are many other organisations, wholesaling and buying and so forth. Macleay Regional, in the early start of 2013, developed a wholesaling arm. And of course it involved with others, and of course part of our structure with our cooperative is around the IGA banner. And of course what we've done is set up a wholesaling arm that actually works in conjunction with the wholesaler Metcash, but at the same time really captures the 25% of the purchasing power of each supermarket. And there are now 50 odd supermarkets in this new cooperative with 30 members. Most of those supermarkets have in excess of $10 million worth of turnover, and we're talking about 25% of their purchasing power, trying to drive it through to local. And of course, Mark mentioned Hepburn Wind, Energy Cooperative, and of course there are medical cooperatives and so forth. So the new cooperatives that are actually happening are actually quite exciting, and they're leading the way. There are other cooperatives that are actually also, I call them community cooperatives, whether they be in food, new markets and so forth, and I've mentioned some of those there. The Alpha, the food cooperative that has actually started on Sydney University campus and now is actually basically embracing Main Street, Newtown. It was classified as a non-trader. On their website recently, they've indicated that they've got some issues around that non-trading status because the tax office and others have actually indicated that they're more commercial now. And so instead of actually having a tax-exempt status, they're being pushed into a tax payable status. So obviously they've got great concerns about that, but that's the direction and that's where things have to go. GV Food, which of course we all remember the Heinz packing houses are closing down and so forth. Well, of course, a new cooperative has actually been formed, working with those producers to actually develop new products and so forth in the tomato industry. What drives co-ops? Well, the legislation supports it. The Co-operative Act 1992, and of course there'll be a National Act in 2014. The principles of cooperation are enshrined into that Act. This is one of the great differences between cooperative and say a company limited by guarantee or even an incorporation. The legislation actually defines the principles. In the case of financial institutions such as credit unions, they have 10 principles, but cooperatives have 7. And of course, these are international principles that are recognised by cooperatives internationally. So it's the same DNA in KEMSI as it is worldwide. Voluntary and open membership, democratic member control, member economic participation, autonomy and independence, education, training and information, cooperation among cooperatives, and concern for the community. Cooperatives aren't a social enterprise, but they certainly have social values. And we talk about these values. I talked about self-help, the definition, with cooperatives generally. Talked about the self-responsibilities. Our income doesn't come from government. Our income comes from actually the efforts of the members through their enterprise. Democracy. Any person that is a member can be a director of that cooperative. They can have a control and the development of the principles around that operation. It's about equity. My cooperative has 5 directors. We have a female chair. She's been a chair for 10 years now. We have an Aboriginal lady, an elder within our community as part of... Now, it's not on the quota system. It is actually on the value that they bring to the table. And, of course, we're going ahead. As I said, we do actually serve well above our weight. And it's about actually co-ops working with co-ops and standing up for the co-op principles. It's about ethical values as well. It's about governance and issues around openness and honesty, social responsibilities, caring for others. They are enshrined into the cooperative model. The UN year, as I said, was a great year for cooperatives. Probably the only business structure that has actually been recognised by the UN as actually a principal structure for the development of enterprise, particularly with social values. It is a worldwide organisation, as one of the slides demonstrated. At the same time, there was great recognition for Australian cooperatives. And of course, in that particular year, we had the strike of the coin, stamps, there was recognition. Cheryl Curnow and others on the three major parties were all very supportive of cooperatives and where we actually showcasing where we'd been and actually showcasing where we're going to go. We had a conference in Port Macquarie, again tied in with the theme of actually showcasing cooperatives not just locally, but regionally, also Australia-wide and internationally. We had international speakers, and of course it was a fantastic event to actually finalise the 2012 year. But the legacies are what really is important. You have a great event, but you've really got to get something from it. One of the legacies that we set out to do was actually develop a business council for cooperatives and mutuals. In early 2013, that came into being. So now we actually have a peak body at national level relating to for cooperatives and mutuals. And then the membership will be driven by not only the federations of cooperatives throughout the states, but also key cooperatives that want to actually be part of that membership into that business council. We need to actually have the year of government. We need to actually advocate what cooperatives are all about. Regional Development Australia, which of course, as Arne indicated, I'm a member of. We've actually worked through Regional Development Australia on the Mid-North Coast, the platform around the social issues, around the regional plan, the state plan and the federal plans. And of course cooperatives are actually rightly got a space in that area. And so we've been really working through that. And we, in that international year, we had a manual launch for the cooperative manual. Now that's a startup manual, it's a resource document for cooperatives, and you can see there from the website how you can actually obtain that. But it's a fantastic manual, it's got some great practical solutions, and of course clearly it's the way forward as to setting up cooperatives. I just hope that that's not the gong. No, I've got 4 minutes 37 seconds to go. There are many other papers in that research year. There were actually lots of stats on cooperatives, lots of breakup of memberships and revenues and what cooperatives are doing. And there's that Australian Institute document, Who Knew Australians Were So Cooperative, is a fantastic resource tool. The cooperative national legislation, when that is enacted, it'll be the first national legislation. Co-ops are actually basically the state acts are actually part of our DNA. We work closely with the state governments, but we need to actually have a national recognition of cooperatives. A cooperative set up in New South Wales, actually dealing with a cooperative in Queensland, or for that matter having a new cooperative set up in Queensland that is actually controlled by the New South Wales state, New South Wales, is a foreign company. So that's really quite, it's like the gauge railway system. It is actually a thing of the past. So we intend to align the actual cooperative federation workshop groups into the 14 RDA, Regional Development Australia regional locations. We're going to work through that. We have some educational alliances with universities and others, Sydney University, Charles Sturt University, Newcastle University. We're just at the moment working with Charles Sturt University relating to postgraduate, basically it's to do with a business postgraduate degree in developing cooperative modules within that business course. We intend to move our membership from some 10% of the local New South Wales membership. We intend to move that to about 80%. That's what the plan is over 10 years. New members will come from non-trading, that is non-trading cooperatives, and also converted associations. We're not converting the associations. The Minister has a right under the Act to actually move an association to a company limited by guarantee or a cooperative company. In the past, for every 10 movements, 9 of them would have been to company limited by guarantee. Advisors, lawyers and others just didn't understand the cooperative and actually where it's at. We're changing that. Education is part of it, engagement is part of it, but we will actually have a lot more cooperatives coming into the scene. And of course, the Federation has actually taken up full membership of the Business Council. And of course, under those conditions, we're able to advocate for cooperatives right up to national level and international level from a very solid base. I've ended these slides with the contact points, which of course, if anyone wants to look at the slides or would like a copy, I'd be only too happy to provide that. But certainly the websites are there for you to actually research at your own leisure. I would like also just to finish off by saying that cooperatives are not a new story. They've been around for a while. Professor Bob Morgan from Tranby College said to me one time, he said, Richard, he said, you talk about 1895s and 1850s. He said, Aboriginals have been cooperating for thousands of years. And it's true. And under those conditions, cooperatives are only new. But I can assure you they'll be around for a long time. It's a story that will not end because it is gathering momentum and it's a great space to be in. Thank you.
Just a technical question. What's the difference between a mutual and a cooperative?
I was going to ask the audience that. Basically, there's very little difference. The cooperative is actually under the Cooperative Act and the mutuals are under their own separate act. In the UK, mutuals were really, there was sort of no real line, but mutuals in Australia actually came out of the life insurance, the road membership businesses and so forth. So I think that they really want not to be cooperatives, and so they actually set their own pace. But in general terms, the Business Council has been developed for cooperatives and mutuals. And so there would be, within their definitions, but I would suggest that we're going to the same end. And so from that point of view, that's why we set up the Business Council, to actually cover both of those sectors. But as to the variations, I can certainly talk about the variations in a cooperative company versus a limited company by guarantee, but there are very thin lines of differences in mutuals. They're both cooperatives.
Yeah, one more question here, lady here. Right, we'll get your microphone. This is all being recorded and filmed and.
Could you give us some examples of when associations might move to being a cooperative?
It's at the Minister's direction. I've seen some incorporated bodies that have got $2 million worth of turnover and net assets of $500,000 have been asked or given an opportunity of running towards a new company over a period of time. But for instance, I'll give you an example. My cooperative has a very strong relationship with an aged care facility in Kempsey, a community aged care facility. We have a number of board members that are on both sides. The Minister, and it's a successful community organisation, the Minister actually sent us a letter indicating that he would like us to change into a cooperative or to a company limited by guarantee. In that instance, we changed to a company limited by guarantee. 2 reasons. While the cooperative structure was more attractive, the bond issues relating to an aged care facility can be quite an issue sitting in your current liability section. And if in fact you have excess current liabilities over assets, you can have a going concern issue that may actually be not intentional, but it can actually have a devastating effect on that body in the community. And so we elected to actually go with a company limited by guarantee because the cooperative structure is it's more public, it is more accountable, which of course every organisation is accountable, but it has some very distinct lines that it actually has within the audit process. Cooperatives can raise their own funds by way of debentures, they can raise their own funds by loans through the cooperative members, or they can actually issue capital units. The business limited by guarantee can't do that, but there are issues around the audit process, and in this case was decided to actually go with the, and we complied with the Minister's request. And that will happen more and more. Because incorporated bodies, as the Minister sees it, this is the Department of Fair Trading, Rod Stowe, and his predecessors see, incorporated bodies are there for, to start up, and basically as commerce actually takes over, then generally they see that as not the vehicle for commerce for the future.
Thank you.
That's their opinion.
Yeah. Thank you, Richard, and thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you very much.